session as part of the Student Success Week. And as you probably know, we have several sessions that are going on this week that I strongly encourage you to attend as many of them as you can, especially if it's something that you have a question about. But this one is specifically going to be about distance learning. There is quite a bit of interaction in this. I will be going over just some tips and pointers, but then I'm going to have you kind of put it into practice and kind of share your thoughts, your feedback. You never know, things that you noticed that have worked that you would like to share with other students. I am getting a lot of my information from a couple meetings that I have gone to in the recent past that have had students that have kind of shared their experiences at Columbus State, forums, insights from students. So just to let you know, a lot of the information that I'm sharing is from past students or other students that are doing distance learning right now. Also just some web research in terms of best practices that are out there. And then obviously going to be showing you some things that are on our website in terms of best practices that are out there too. I am full-time an academic advisor at Columbus State, so a lot of what I will share is just what I do every day in terms of working with students. I work specifically with the Health and Human Services students, but obviously most of our students are online right now. We do have some classes that are in person, but most of the courses are online. So some of what I will be sharing will be just kind of anecdotes from students that have been there, done that, tips and things that they have shared with me that have worked for them, especially because we have been online for almost a year now. So I've definitely worked the gamut of students that this is their first semester here at Columbus State, first experience with distance learning, to now students that it's become old hat and they're asking me questions about how much distance learning is going to continue in the future. If you wouldn't mind sharing in the chat feature, if you feel comfortable, if you could share what your major is and how long you've been here at Columbus State and kind of what your experience with this distance learning, like whether this is your first semester, if it's your third semester that you've done distance learning, that would be great. If you could go ahead and add that in the chat feature for other folks to see so that you could maybe have some connections with the other students that are here also, that would be great. I will say, like I said, I'm an academic advisor here. I also wear another hat. I am a Columbus State mom. I have a son who is in his second year at Columbus State, so kind of wrapping things up. And so he definitely came to Columbus State because he liked the smaller size, the personalized attention, wanted to do mostly in-person courses. And then COVID hit and we had to go online, and he definitely did not want to be an online student. And definitely there were some moments when he was like, I do not know if I can do this, but we, just like I do with all my students, he said, can we give it a try? Can we just see how it goes? And there have been a lot of things that he's had a lot of success with that I don't think would have happened if he had been in the classroom. So he's really kind of learned kind of the benefits of distance learning and is looking at trying to kind of incorporate it in his coursework as he kind of moves forward, basically. And it's been kind of an exciting time for him because the area that he wants to go into is education. So he also just started this semester at Ohio State. So we now have the experience of being a first-time student at a college with distance learning, as many of our students are also. But he's going into education. So this has been a good experience for him to see kind of a different way that students can learn, not just in the classroom, but online also. So, it's been kind of good for him to see both ways. So have some anecdotes from him and also just from a lot of his friends that are at Columbus State and what I've kind of gained and heard from them, which was one of the reasons why I was interested in doing this workshop, is just that I have seen people go from being totally panicked about distance learning to becoming very comfortable with it to really thriving in a distance learning world. So going to kind of share some of their anecdotes as well and hope that you will feel comfortable kind of sharing those things too. I do appreciate, I see that a lot of you have kind of put in there what your major is. That's wonderful. We've got quite a variance. I'm happy to see some of our Health and Human Services students that are here. Welcome, welcome. Boy, we really have quite a wide range, and a wide range And also a Columbus State mom. That's excellent. And oh, and a daughter who has graduated from Bowling Green. That is wonderful. And then I know Grace is looking at some online programs. She had commented to me earlier. So even some of our staff members are kind of looking at distance education programs too. So welcome everybody, and I appreciate that. Just a little bit to kind of let you know what's going to kind of happen from here. This is our agenda for our time that we're going to have here together. Did those introductions, and thank you all for your chats that are continuing to flow there. That's wonderful. Gives me a little bit of feedback as to how you are feeling and thinking right now. We're going to start with kind of a quick poll for folks just to kind of see how you're feeling, where you're at with things. And then I would like to go over one thing specifically online that I think is like the best kind of landing page for resources in regards to distance education. I do want to go over that because when I thought about it, I thought I have had a lot of students that are really kind of like at the point where they're like, I just can't take on anymore. My job has changed completely. Maybe family situations have changed completely. COVID definitely has everyone on the edge. I know sometimes other things that are kind of happening in the community have people on edge. It's been tough to kind of navigate a whole new world, a whole new online world. So it's not just being a new student, but it's also learning where things are, kind of similar to if we were in person, having to navigate your way around campus. You're navigating it, but more in a virtual world. So no, you don't have to find a building or a specific classroom, but you're finding an actual, finding your way of how to do things online. When I kind of was putting this together with some other teammates here at Columbus State, I just kept thinking, in case there are folks that are there that are here because things have gotten kind of overwhelming, I want to give them that one thing that, like, if you can just grasp onto one thing, this would be the one thing that I would really want you to kind of know. And that would be the information that's on our first 4 weeks resource page. So I'd like to go over that with you. And then we're going to start putting things into action. I'm going to have you grab one of your syllabus and kind of look at some information, look at some scenarios, and then just kind of finish up with what to do from here and see if you have any questions. Sound good? So just a fun, quick poll, and I think we will let's use our hands for this first one, just to kind of get you interacting a little bit, thinking about something that is kind of lighthearted and hopefully something that maybe you're going to have some fun with this weekend. I was thinking about the Super Bowl and wanting to emphasize that there are no right or wrong answers, but let's have a show of hands in terms of who you're cheering for. Is anybody out there like die hard rooting for, really wanting the Chiefs to win? Any hands up for that one? Gosh, poor little Chiefs. They don't have a lot of people cheering for them. How about Tampa Bay? Anybody hands up for that one? I see somebody is a Tampa Bay, not a sports ball fan. Totally understand that. I put that question out there because it can really run the gamut. Just like how you're feeling about distance education. Some students are like, whatever, I did it in high school. I've got it. I'm good. So the people that are, yes, you could root for the commercials. That is fine too. I was going to say, some people only want to be cheering for the commercials. Jeff is a Kansas City fan, or you might be way on the other end. We are huge Green Bay Packer fans in my house. My husband grew up like 2 hours outside of Green Bay, so he's kind of getting to the point where he's like, it's a football game, so I guess I'll watch it, but I do not think he's going to be cheering for Tampa Bay. So, everybody is a little bit different there. That is fine. What about, put it in the chat box, what are some things that you're binge watching right now because it's COVID? I know we took like a quick break. Our advisors, we were going back and forth with chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and shout something out, I'm fine with that too. If you need a little practice unmuting and shouting something out. Last Tango in Halifax, I do not know that one, and thank you for letting me know that it's on Netflix. The Office is very popular with I have a high school senior, and that is very, very popular with them right now. I don't know that one. 9/11, also popular with my high school student right now. I know my husband and I am a baker. not by trade, although my office does happen to be within hospitality. Last winter, when things first shut down, I was doing the whole bread thing. I've gotten over that, and I am now doing like different desserts. So we've done the British baking show. We've even found the Canadian version, the Australian version. Yeah, it's almost like a little sickness there. So yeah, in Bridgerton, I started it, but did not finish it, so got to get back to that one. We'll keep those coming because definitely I know people, especially right now, there's snow on the ground, don't want to go out. People are looking for what's a new thing to watch, so keep that coming. Going back more to what our subject is for today, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being I barely know how to run this Teams thing, to 5 being like, give me a high five, I've got this, I could teach a class online. How comfortable are you feeling with online learning? 1 being I can barely get my Teams meeting to work, to 5 being give me a high five. I know there was somebody who told me earlier she was in a computer science. So, oh, this is good that most of you are feeling pretty comfortable. So feel free. Again, this isn't just taking in information. If you have tips and pointers that you want to share, please go ahead and do that. Love to see that in the chat feature. And then what about your resources at Columbus State? Let's say that 1 could be that you know where the website is and that's it. And 5 could be that, again, you are maybe ready to graduate and you feel like you've got it, basically. How comfortable are you feeling with the resources at Columbus State? I'd like to see that as well. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Well, going back to the agenda again, when I thought about this, and I do appreciate y'all kind of sharing that, keep sharing those questions that you have. I kind of flipped my screen a little bit because I wanted to go to the main website. I just want to show you one kind of key resource before we get into some of the scenarios and situations and things that we have kind of planned for you. Again, if you are feeling a little overwhelmed, or you know, you maybe have already had a class this morning, you've got another one, and you're in information overload, if there's only one resource that you can remember this one. And this is Columbus State's main website. Under resources for students, if you go right here, the first 4 weeks is going to pop up for you. The other thing I always like to point out to students, because a lot of times they don't know it's there, is from our main website, there is a search feature right here. So anytime you have a question about, you know, where something is on the website, you can always just type that and then type in what your question is or what it is that you're looking for, and this will pop up. But I love this landing page. This one and the login, learn on are the 2 that I'm constantly either referring students to who have a question about something, or even for myself when I'm looking for something. Like a student the other day was worried about her Wi-Fi and the health programs. There's a test that they have to take to get into the major, and she originally had things worked out to use the Wi-Fi at work to take her, it's called the HESI test, and it's a pretty extensive test, and it does help determine whether or not they get into their program. So it's pretty important. She had worked it out with her employer that she was going to take it at home and at work. Then they said that she could not do that. So we had to do kind of scramble and get her Wi-Fi access, and had to kind of find that information for her. I go here sometimes to kind of look up information myself, but this is a great kind of landing page for information about online learning and just about different resources that are here at Columbus State. I know that the semester has already begun, but in case, put up a hand if there's anyone. Is there anyone who is not in a class right now, who's maybe waiting for a flex term class that's going to start later in March? I've had a couple folks, there's a couple that are at the end of February. Had a couple that are kind of in contact with me because they're still kind of getting ready to start. Anyone one at all? Okay, so most of you have already started your classes, so I know that this pre-semester checklist wouldn't necessarily pertain to you right now, but I just want to remind you that it's a good thing to kind of look at each semester, because it will help you to kind of set yourself up for success right from the beginning, basically. And as we transition, I'm being optimistic. I am hoping that we return to campus as soon as well, I don't want to say because who knows when it will actually happen, but I would love it if like next week we were back on campus with classes basically. But a lot of the things that we're talking about, I'll be honest, are things that you can use any semester, regardless of whether you're an online student or not. So that whole piece about setting yourself up for success before the semester even begins could pertain to you whether you're an online student or not. Having those conversations with your family about this is a family activity. I've had lots of students that have said, like, even if your family is still like you're at home with mom and dad, I had to set boundaries in terms of this is how much time I'm going to be spending on my schoolwork. I think it's become even more critical now that we are online because I'm hearing from a lot of students that have said, because I'm at home, a lot of times like it's just really convenient to say, hey, could you watch, cousin, little brother, grandma, whoever it might be, because they see you at home. You're not off at school on campus. Also, I know a lot of students have said I've had to constantly kind of remind mom and dad that if I'm on my phone, doesn't mean that I'm just playing games. I'm doing my schoolwork basically. So maybe carving that time out with your family about what those expectations are in terms of what else you'll be doing with your family, where you will go. I know there are 4 of us working from home in this house, but we all have a room that when that person is in that room, it's almost as if they are in their office area and they are at work. So you would need to, I've got the door closed right now so they know that I am busy doing something. Typically they think I'm in an appointment with a student, but they know that I'm kind of doing that. If they do need to come in, if there's an emergency, they would do that the same way they would if I was at work. So kind of doing those things that kind of help you beforehand, making sure that your Wi-Fi is set up, making sure that you understand how to log into your class, how to find assignments, all of those kinds of things. So that pre-semester checklist is very important to kind of look at. I teach the Coles class also. I a lot of times will tell students this is a great time to go back to that pre-semester checklist because it's a good time to look at like, okay, now that things are flowing, how's it really going and what adjustments do I need to make? This is how we envisioned the semester going, but it's not exact. You have to fine tune things. I like to think of it as almost like coaching. Like now that you're kind of in the game, what do you have to do to make those adjustments basically? And your kids think that it's rude that you're in school. That's okay. I hopefully they can kind of learn along with you there, Bridget. So don't feel too bad about that. And then there's also this information, Online Learning 101. I really love this. Again, this Login Learn On has a lot of resources for you as well. Let me make sure this flips over. This has a lot of resources for you as well in terms of resources at Columbus State. I do want to emphasize, and hopefully you kind of know this, but anything that we offered before in person, we are still offering. So if you still need tutoring, if you need disability services, financial aid, academic advising, hopefully you went to like orientation before you started, we are still offering all of those services. It varies as to how you get in connection with that office, depending upon the service that they provide. It might be through phone. Like I said, I do these Teams meetings like we're doing right now with my students a lot of times because I can share the screen and show them where things are online. It might be a chat feature where you can, go ahead and chat with someone. It might be an email, but everything is still being provided online. And keep in mind that those resources are typically there even when we are in person, that you may be able to come in person, but you might be able to get that help through a phone call or email too, basically. So that login learn on is very, very popular and very, very handy. I love this because I think it really breaks it down into the 4 things that are most important. Like, what are the online course expectations? When you're in, again, even when you're in an in-person class, you still are going to have those expectations. There's some great videos there to kind of help you if you need additional information about online learning after today. Blackboard orientation, how many of you, show of hands, how many of you have already done the Blackboard orientation? I know I have. In Nicole's class, I have students that are like, this is great because I had no idea. And then I have other students that are like, this is literally my 10th time someone has asked me to do the Blackboard orientation. I get the Blackboard already. We just like to make sure that you know how to use that. So that's great. Thank you for showing me, that you have used that. I really, really appreciate that. So Blackboard orientation to kind of help you manage the system, and then also technical requirements to make sure that you have what you're going to need to be successful in that classroom, technically speaking, like that you have the right software, that if you need audio, if you need a camera, whatever it might be. I also love this ready assessment, and if you've taken Nicole's class, that's a requirement for the class because it helps you to kind of learn yourself as a student and what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, for being in an online world, and then also for being outside of an online world. So if you've not taken that yet, or if you've not looked at that yet, I would encourage you to come back to this page. Again, resources for students, and then go to the first 4 weeks, and this information is going to be there. Technology tools and support. This website will give you a lot of information about how to get started, a lot of their videos that are out there to kind of help you if you're that student that, again, you would want to make sure that you always know your instructor can help you with these things as well. But if you're having trouble in terms of like, how do I turn in an assignment, anything like that, their information is there. I, just like everybody else, has used the IT support a lot since we have been at home. They are super helpful people. I believe, and Jeff and Grace, if you guys want to chime in, I think they're still doing some in-person appointments, aren't they? Do either of you know for sure?
Yeah, they'll always start with the virtual and phone, but if they have an issue where they need to actually see your device and they can't get to it on the phone, I believe, you can still schedule something in person.
I think so too. So just to kind of let you know that that resource is out there, but I'll be honest, I have called them probably 10 times. I've had students in my class that have said that they have called them. They're able to do a lot remotely and help you with what's going on with your computer and get your issues resolved. They are extremely knowledgeable. That general number is 614-287-5050. So anytime if you have a technology issue, we're going to talk about that later, I would jump in and wherever you're keeping kind of your important information, I would keep that one on there. I've talked about some of these, and we're going to have you write down kind of those key contacts in a minute, but I love this because it gives you just some real quick study tips for online classes. And again, even if when we go back to an in-person world, these are things that you're still going to want to have practice kind of doing, carving out that learning space wherever you can go that you will not be distracted. Thank you, Grace, for putting that in there for IT support. Carving out your learning space when you're taking your classes, maybe carving out if it is a web-based course where it's not at a certain time, to still kind of think of it as I'm going to pretend like this class is always Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and I'm going to do my work Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Carving out that schedule time, and then how you're going to take notes and how you're going to keep track of your teachers' information, and then also other students in your class information. And again, I want to emphasize that all of the resources that we have available are available in a virtual world also. So that information is all compacted right here on this landing page. Should you need additional help, I would encourage you to look at the schedule of the other workshops, because there's a lot of variety of workshops that are coming up this week. But then we do have some also that are on this page in terms of these are just our resources resources on campus, but then also virtual resources are listed there as well. So I would really, really, really encourage you to kind of take a look at that. Let me go back to, if you have any questions, go ahead and put that in the chat feature there, because I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint and I'm going to have you do an activity next. Okay, so if you all, so again, I just want to remind you, if you can take away one thing, this is the website that I would encourage you to kind of go to, because it is the landing page for those overarching topics of setting yourself up for success, having the technology, the internet information, your time management, knowing your campus resources. Those kind of 4 areas are all right there on that website. If you would all just take a minute, and if you need to open up another screen to get to your information for your classes, I would like you to pull out a syllabus for one of your classes. Go ahead and get that ready. And I would like you to kind of quiz yourself a little bit about whether or not you have these things already together. And actually, maybe before we start this, feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and kind of shout this out. I'd be curious to know how many of you do kind of keep this collectively all together, or if you wouldn't mind kind of just sharing with the group, how do you keep all this information together as a student? Let us know whether or not that's something that maybe you do on your phone, or if it's something you do in writing. Is anybody willing to go ahead and unmute themselves and tell us how you keep track of information about your class?
I keep track of my information in a 3-ring binder. I keep the syllabus, the course schedule, and any pertinent documents that I've printed offline in a 3-ring binder per course.
Okay. And do you mind me asking, is that like you have one binder per course, or do you have a big binder separated out, or?
I have a big 3-subject, huge, it's about 3 inches wide, and I just put the little tabs in there per course.
Okay.
It works perfect for me.
I love that. I love that.
Old school girl, and I like the paper.
That's okay. I have come to learn that there are folks that are either old school, and I still like to see things in front of me and have it in writing. And then there are some folks who prefer it to be in a technology area. So that is fine. Anyone else want to unmute themselves and kind of share how they are doing that and keeping that information? I see some in the chat feature. I'll wait a second to see if anybody else wants to unmute. And in the chat, I'm seeing Catherine have folders for each course. That's wonderful. And I do think, yeah, some people like to keep it by course. Some like to just have a folder. I've talked to some students that, and was it Rebecca, I think, who was saying it was all in a binder. I've had some students that keep an actual binder, and it's like their Columbus State binder. And I think this is a great idea. At the end of the class, they keep the syllabi for each of their courses so that they always have that instructor's contact information. Like I said, I teach the Coles class, but I've had students that 2 years later contact me. They're like, they did not have a question until now, but now they've got a question. They remembered, something that we talked about in the class and need help in terms of finding that resource. You never know when you might need to be back in touch with that instructor, maybe for a letter of recommendation, or, obviously a lot of our students transfer, continue on to get a bachelor's degree. So there might be something about the class that when you transfer, if you need additional information about that class, as part of the transfer information, you might need that. So I think that's a great idea to keep that information, whether it's electronically or in a binder. I know sometimes it kind of depends on your situation, and I'm reading through this. It looks like a lot of people print out. Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't gone all the way through. A bullet journal. That's wonderful. Oh, and I do like checking off all their work as I go along too. Anybody use anything electronic? Does anybody want to unmute themselves and talk about their electronic device, their app that they use? I know my son uses an app because he likes the alarm kind of going off and reminding him of things. Does anybody use an electronic device to keep track of information? And I know my son does use his phone also. OneNote, thank you. Yes, I was going to say that that is the one that my son uses also. He also uses that. Sorry, it's hard for me to talk and read some of the stuff. I'm a little behind on the chat here. He likes the OneNote because he has found a nice spot outside of the home that he goes and studies at, and that follows him with him. I have had a number of students that have said the reason why they do use the electronic part is, again, because they're not in the same place. Like, I have some students that are still going back and forth between maybe two parents' homes, or my students that are fortunate enough that they can study at work. I've had lots of students that have said, I use the electronic version because I can just take my laptop with me to work, and then I don't have to carry like a binder. Other students that, again, like the more paper and pencil, I had one student that said she just has kind of a designated area, and she does like to have the paper and pencil because she just feels like visually then when she gets there, it helps her to put herself in that place, basically. So right now, if you do not have something, if you could maybe make a note for yourself as to how you are going to keep yourself organized, and I would make sure that you do have each instructor's name, their contact information, phone number, email. I know I've had some students that have said they do. Oh, I know. I had a student that had a whiteboard. I thought this was a great idea. And she had some anxiety issues, and it helped her to stay calm, actually, if she could just look up at the whiteboard and know that she would not have to dig around in different notebooks and in different syllabi, and it made her anxious to think about getting on the computer because she always worried about, well, what if my Wi-Fi, what if? So she knew if that whiteboard was there, and then she took a picture of it with her phone, so she had her backup. It helped her to just stay calm because she always knew, like, if I run into trouble, right there are my three instructors, their email, their phone number. It simplified it for her. It just visually, like, it gave her kind of that's my lifeline, basically, that if I need it, it's right there, and I don't worry about how am I going to have to find it, basically. And I love this one. This was Jessica, this was something that another student had just told me about too, in terms of the highlighting the test and the quizzes. So I think that is a great idea also. And again, if you're more of a visual person, that is a great way to do that. You're going to see this question at the bottom of each of these slides, where and how you organize all this information. I hope you're learning from the other students. Thank you so much for sharing those tips and ideas. Quiz yourself also. Does your instructor keep their office hours? For that syllabus that you've just pulled up, did you already know what your instructor's office hours were? Did you know when they were and how you could join them? Especially right now during virtual world, how would you join them? And when we go back in person, this is something that I would ask you to kind of challenge yourself to know at the beginning. Again, setting yourself up for success. Office hours, and where does your instructor keep those office hours? Where in the department can you see them if you need to, basically? If you want to highlight that information, maybe in a different color, maybe, you know, draw a box around it. I had one student that she just knows where it is in Blackboard, because most students most instructors put it in Blackboard in a certain area. So yeah, that would be, you know, however you want to do that would be fine. On your syllabus that you've got right now, look at what are the technical requirements for this class. Do you need any special software? How are you getting together virtually? Is it Teams, Zoom, Blackboard, Collaborate, discussion boards? What is it? Has everybody looked ahead on their syllabus to make sure? Do you tend to just look week to week? I personally, as an advisor, think it's best to look ahead and maybe even have, like, I've encouraged students to have a planner that shows every class so you know how they all fit together. Has everybody looked ahead in all of their classes so you know what's kind of coming up in the future, and if you're always on Teams or if you're always on Blackboard Collaborate, or if it changes during this semester? Any questions on that at all? Okay. And hopefully same, that you're looking ahead to the course materials that you need. Do you have all the books that you need? Is there additional readings? If so, When are they? Where are they? Especially right now, I've had a number of students that have contacted me that typically would get things out of the library. If that's what you do, and I know that that saves money, and I'm talking not necessarily Columbus State's library, but a lot of my students use things that are in the Columbus Public Library, like students that are in our ECDE and maybe need children's literature books. Just know that there's a little bit of a delay in terms of getting your material, so you definitely want to look ahead and plan ahead and give yourself kind of that extra time to get those materials. If you're getting things through, our bookstore, they will still mail those to you, but just allow that extra time for those mailings. Maybe allow time for other things that you might have to download. This is probably a good reminder too, that not only knowing contact for your instructor, but know how to contact other people in your class, so that if maybe you can chat with other students in your class and get materials from them, that you will be able to do that. Again, bringing up that HESI test, there's a book you can get to help you study for that. You can get that through the bookstore, you can get it through the library, but then students also kind of chat with each other. And the bookstore is pretty fast. Thank you. Yeah. I think they've done a great job during COVID to kind of get materials out to people, but just look ahead. I know some students look week to week, but then it kind of surprises them when they get to a week and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that I needed that book, that kind of thing. So look at that syllabus and kind of set yourself up for that success for things that you will need later in the semester. And that goes back to the major assignments, the papers, exams, whatever you're doing, whether that's something electronically, a specific app that you're using, or maybe your notebook that's free, or if it's something in writing, just make sure that you kind of have all those materials together. I would also really, again, from an academic advisor standpoint, obviously everybody starts and we hope that everything goes perfect and that you're not going to need any resources. I think, again, and I love that idea that I got from my student about the whiteboard, whatever that lifeline is for you, think about yourself, you know yourself best. If tutoring, if you know that that's your lifeline and you don't want to be digging around for, oh shoot, where did she say that was? What was the website? If you want to write down first 4 weeks, like on your whiteboard or whatever it is that, you know, how you're going to organize yourself, think about those resources that are available too. Look at your syllabus right now. Typically, like if you're in a math class, if you're in a writing class, the instructors are going to let you know what the resources are in terms of online tutoring that you can use and how to kind of get to that. But again, when you're in that moment that it's 9 o'clock at night, I've worked all day, I've been in my class, I finally got the kids to bed, I'm now sitting down to do my math homework and my brain is fried, so even the simplest thing would be tough for me, but now this difficult problem is really tough for me. The last thing you want to do is to be digging around and hunting around on the website. Where was that resource? I don't remember. If you put that somewhere, like, and maybe if you're using a binder, like the first page of your binder or wherever it is that you're keeping all your information together, what is that lifeline? What's the number for that person in the class that you can call? Your uncle who was a math major who told you that he can assist you with whatever you need help with. How do you access that? And keeping that available to yourself so that you can find it not on your good day, but on your bad day, basically, keeping that so that in your worst moment, you've got it right away. And I would like you to just take a minute and figure out, like, how are you going to do that, or where are you going to kind of keep that information? And I see some folks type in there. Also, if there are any policies that you need to keep in mind, we do teach a wide range of classes. So, that would pertain to not all of our classes are just face-to-face lecture type courses. You might be out in the field taking your class. It might be something that's more kind of hands-on. What are their classes? Who do you call if you're running late, if your car breaks down? What do you do in that situation, basically? So, keeping those kind of policies in mind too, especially if you are in classes or, what are your instructors' policies for, they probably aren't going to accept assignments that are late, other policies that are in place too. Again, if you're in something that's not an in-person class, but you're out in the field doing work, keeping the lifeline if it's, if you are out doing a clinical rotation somewhere that's not on the Columbus State's campus and you're driving with other students, having all that stuff like right in one spot where you can go to it and you don't have to dig around for it could really help you also. And again, looking ahead to knowing what that's going to be like also. Okay. Okay, so before I get to, I thought that was the last one. I had to kind of check. Let me pause for just a second. Any questions on, there's a couple scenarios that I want to kind of go over. But before I do that, any questions on any of the materials that I've gone over so far, or anything else anybody else wants to add that they have used as a tip or a trick that they would like to share with the rest of the group? Okay. So for the next part, these are just a couple of scenarios that we have. So if you would go ahead and unmute yourself, because I'd like to talk about these as a group. So take just a second to unmute yourself. And again, sorry, if you've not used Teams before, it's probably in the upper right-hand corner. It should look like I never know how to describe that. It's like a little microphone thing and it's got an X. So if you just click on that, that will turn your audio on. And I'm going to bring up the scenario. Ahmad is in his second year at Columbus State. This is obviously based on a student, but I've changed the name. He came to college feeling very strongly that he wanted to go into education, but a little unsure on the specifics of what he wanted to teach or how to finish that degree because he wasn't sure what area he wanted to teach, whether it was elementary, middle school. He was doing well in classes his first year, but did not anticipate having to take so many online classes. When he went into education, he thought he'd be more of an in-person student. Autumn semester, he struggled with understanding his math course and was not sure how to get help or talk to the instructor. Lately, his mom has been asking him to help with his younger brother. Mom has had to work a lot of extra shifts because of COVID and because of some financial situations that they've had. So it was a little uncomfortable telling her no, because he just really didn't want to disappoint mom. And obviously, money is really tight for family right now. However, I can't remember the age of his brother, but it was old enough that it was affecting his schoolwork. Again, because it's really easy when you're in a web-based class to not realize that that's still 3 hours of in-class time in addition to your study time. So mom didn't understand how much time he needed to spend on school. What do you think he should do from here? What are resources that you would recommend for him? Go ahead and shout them out.
Email instructor for his math class, get into tutoring.
Instructor, tutoring. Other suggestions? Counseling services, someone said. That is perfect. Yeah, because you don't know. Yeah, I didn't give you a lot of information. But he might be feeling some real stress that he would need to, and counseling services actually now has a chat feature, by the way. But yeah, counseling services, if he's feeling very overwhelmed, collaborate to talk to his instructor using those office hour times that the instructor has. Having a lot of you have talked about, again, when I think about resources, your family is a huge resource also. So talking to the family, I love that. Maybe the younger brother can do the schoolwork at the same time if they are both busy. Maybe having that conversation like, okay, maybe I do have to watch younger brother, but what are the parameters? Could he watch a video? Could he work on a project next to me? I think he was they weren't at home, like he was having to take him to basketball practice or something like that where he did not have Wi-Fi. So that was the big kind of issue and problem for him. So, one of the things that we brainstormed was talking to mom about, could we flip that and someone else takes him to the spot where there's not Wi-Fi. We also talked about the Wi-Fi hotspot and getting that provided for him basically. So these are some great ideas that you have come up with for him. I see someone else is typing, so I'm going to wait a second there. I love that somebody brought up counseling services. I also thought about career services. I have to give them a little plug too, because I again want to emphasize that all of the offices are still functioning even though we're in a virtual world. So the fact that he was kind of unsure about what area of education, again from an academic advisor standpoint, got him connected with career services so we could kind of iron that out and figure that out so that he could take the classes that he needs specific for his major. He was getting to the point where he was getting into major specific classes, and without knowing whether that was going to be elementary or middle school, it was really important to do that. So career services, just want to emphasize again that they are available. We talked some about the financial situation that was going on, so financial aid was important. And also career services in terms of maybe finding employment right now while he's in school to kind of help with that financial situation. We talked about all the time management kinds of things that we've already kind of discussed in terms of, when he said he wasn't sure how to get help, looking at, what would he do in the future to keep that syllabus going back to like, how are you going to keep that information readily available for yourself so that that doesn't happen for him again, that he doesn't get to that position where I've got this math course and I don't know where to do or how to connect with that. And then we talked about the course repeat option, that he can repeat the class if he needs to. Basically, you all did a great job with that scenario. You all could become academic advisors. Our second scenario and our last scenario is Gabby is an Associate of Arts major who is unsure where she wants to transfer or what she will major in. She is not sure how to figure this out, but thought she would just start here. Gabby's kind of our typical Associate of Arts student. She knows she wants to transfer, knows she wants to get that bachelor's degree, wasn't sure on her major or where she might want to go, but she's taken English, Psych, History, Math. That's a pretty typical schedule in your first semester. She's having a hard time managing all the classes together while she maintains 25 hours a week working. She has a paper due in English 1100 that she would like someone to proofread, but is unsure how to get someone to proofread that, and she was not sure how to submit it to her instructor. And she has a test coming up in history, but was a little bit worried about logging on and her Wi-Fi. Anyone want to shout out resources that we might suggest to Gabby? What is poor Gabby to do?
The academic advisors and career services would help her.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's like I thought, oh man, I lost my gold star for the day. I forgot to mention academic advising in that last scenario, but yes, academic advising, career services. Any other suggestions? Email her teacher about the Wi-Fi and testing, a virtual appointment for the Writing Center. Yep, all of that. Writing Center is available right now. Other suggestions? Again, some of the things that we had you go through with the syllabus, all that information would be there. Contacting IT support. Now, I don't remember if that was in the chat feature or not, but contacting IT support from the website the first 4 weeks that I had shown you before, they could give you assistance in terms of hotspot, your Wi-Fi. If you ever do need a loaner Google Chromebook, they can kind of assist you with that. If you're having trouble in terms of a particular software, your instructor, it's always best to probably start with your instructor first. If you're having trouble submitting things, maybe there's an alternative route. It's also good for the instructor to know that, because maybe there's something within the course that they weren't aware of that's kind of causing problems. Like maybe there's a link in the Blackboard that's not correct. Contacting their advisor in terms of where to transfer, what they're majoring in, career services again. The transfer center, I wanted to mention that. is an awesome resource that, again, typically physically you could go in and talk to advisors from other colleges, but you are able to do that virtually right now. They are still kind of having times when students can stop in virtually and talk with them. So that is a great resource for her in terms of, we get kind of the specifics of the class taken care of, but that bigger picture of, what are you going to do with your life? You can still have contact with other advisors from other colleges, basically. So I just wanted to kind of point out that that service is still available to you. Other suggestions, questions? Again, Counseling Center, if you are feeling extremely anxious, still there to kind of provide that support. And it looks like some folks are typing. Okay, if you come up with any other ideas, just put them there in the chat feature. If you have overall questions. Oh, okay. So thank you very much, Brianna. I appreciate that. So yeah, just know that those resources are still available. And just to kind of wrap up, and if you have questions, feel free to either unmute yourself and shout them out, raise your hand, put it in the chat feature, and I'll kind of watch both. But just to kind of wrap up and to kind of remind you of those resources, again, sorry to keep harping on it, but I'm of the mindset that sometimes you really can only hold on to one more piece of information. So first 4 weeks, everything is kind of self-contained within here. These are the kind of the 4 kind of areas to kind of think about. But if your issue is more of a technology issue, we've got things covered to kind of help you with that in terms of hotspots, a Chromebook loaner, and sometimes I've had students that have only had to use that loaner for a week or two. Again, my student that had the situation with her work situation that she thought she had things worked out, and it was a very sudden change that she could not use that. So you can use that for the semester for a shorter amount of period of time if you need to. If it's a quick question, this is their email. This is their phone number. You might want to keep that handy, the same place where you're keeping your syllabi and things like that handy, keeping that. Campus resources, I encourage you to attend other workshops this week. General resources are out there. The Getting Started guide is more of how to use Cougar Web, how to use Blackboard. That's a great resource for you. I would also encourage you, again, to take some time real quick to look at that pre-semester checklist now that the semester is underway, to see what kind of adjustments you need to make, and to just kind of get yourself in that habit of checking it each time the semester starts. I even have had a student just last week who told me, and I thought this was a great tip. I've never had a student say this. I don't know why. It never occurred to me. She always purposefully takes off a few days, like the first days of the semester. And she financially can kind of afford that. So I know not everybody would be able to, but it just kind of puts her at ease that she doesn't have to do school and work at the same time. She only has to do just school. And it really helps her to kind of relax and kind of ease into the semester. And then once she kind of feels like she's got it, then she kind of adds the work part on top of that. I thought that was a great idea. But those are kind of the things that you can do before this semester to kind of help yourself. And again, get into the habit of looking over that syllabus, knowing how to get in touch with your instructor, having that lifeline, the point contact person, whether that's your academic advisor, some staff member, or faculty member that you've worked with in the past, that if you do have a question and you do not know who to ask, they can point you in the right direction. Setting those boundaries with your family, your friends, work. We haven't gotten to touch on that, but making sure work knows these are the hours that I'm going to be in school. I cannot work during those times, whatever that might be. Finding that spot that works well for you and others in your home, maybe multiple spots, maybe you need a change of scenery, whatever that might be. And then having that established study schedule and semester plan for yourself. Again, these are all things that will help you as an online learner, and they're things that are going to help you in the future when we all go back to in person again.